Welcome to another episode of What is Hashimoto's with Dr. Martin Rutherford. To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com. And now, here's Dr. Rutherford.
Okay, so today we're going to do Hashimoto's and neuroinflammation. This was a request, and it's interesting because all of a sudden I'm seeing neuroinflammation patients like this week. I've seen like 3, and they're mostly post-concussion syndrome, but you don't have to have post-concussion to have neuroinflammation. And so neuroinflammation, inflammation of mainly inflammation of the brain. Okay, neuroinflammation in the brain can cause a lot of different symptoms, as you can imagine. But how does Hashimoto's play into that? It plays in that in so many different ways. You have to realize that I hope that we're at a point where the people who are watching, those of you who are watching regularly, or people who come in here and we explain it to them, that Hashimoto's is multiple different vicious cycles. Neuroinflammation can cause Hashimoto's, and Hashimoto's can cause neuroinflammation, for starters. Okay, and then that can affect your endocrine system. That can affect your digestive system. Your digestive system can affect that. Brain can affect brain function, and so I just want you to have that kind of context for what I'm about to say. So neuroinflammation in the brain. So first of all, the brain, back to basics. Okay. And so, first of all, the brain needs lack of oxygen. You don't have oxygen to your brain, and I get the Hashimoto's thing. Okay, so I am layering to that. So if you don't get oxygen to the brain, you're going to get inflammation. Okay, if you have blood sugar imbalances, then blood sugar imbalances, you fatigue after meals, you fall asleep. You get more energy after a meal. You feel really great, but 2 hours later you fall asleep. Then you either have the first one was insulin resistance. The second one is functional hypoglycemia. You have either one of those. Every time you fall asleep, it's an inflammatory response. If you have a poor blood-brain barrier, if you have a poor gut barrier, you're going to get that inflammation in your brain. Actually, you're going to get it in your brain anyway because the blood sugar needs to be stable in your brain. So oxygen. So blood sugar, and then you need proper essential fatty acids. Well, if your gallbladder is not working, if your liver's not working properly, you're not going to, even if you're eating like 6 fish a day, you're not going to be getting enough essential fatty acids in your brain. Essential fatty acids in your brain are dampening to inflammation. So 2 of these things create inflammation. One of them dampens inflammation, and then the other thing your brain needs is no inflammation. Okay, to work right. And that can be a ton of things, depending on how the system is broken down. So how does this relate to Hashimoto? So directly, Hashimoto's decreases blood supply to your frontal lobe, which is like about half of your brain. Like it's like this whole front half, and it's the part where you think, and it's your executive function, it's your mood, it's like your motivation. It's your thinking. They call it your executive function. It decreases blood supply to your brain. Well, there's your oxygen gone. Inflammation. Low oxygen, inflammation. Low oxygen, I can't think. Low oxygen, I'm fatigued, and so Hashimoto's directly decreases blood supply to your brain. Actually, Hashimoto's is now being thought to contribute to a substantial portion of migraines, and this is one of the reasons. And I think it's like 70%. I think last research study I looked on that, I think it was like 70%. Don't yell at me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the figure. Second thing Hashimoto's does is it creates inflammation in the brain. Hashimoto's in itself the same mechanisms that create inflammatory markers in Hashimoto's, then Hashimoto's starts creating, starts putting out too much thyroid hormone. There's an inflammatory response that goes along with destroying the tissue, and that inflammation makes its way to the brain. And they're actually saying migraines. They're actually saying now that Meniere's disease, neuronitis, that a number of these things, this is neuroinflammation. Okay, the number of these entities that we thought were caused by separate issues are actually being caused by Hashimoto's, the neuroinflammation from Hashimoto's. So that's how Hashimoto's directly works with neuroinflammation. Now, when I evaluate neuroinflammation, you're doing blood tests to see if a person's got a bad blood-brain barrier, to see if they got a bad gut barrier. You're going to be looking for pathologies. You might be looking for chemical triggers. You might be looking for pathogenic triggers like Epstein-Barr viruses and chronic viruses and herpes viruses, but in plastics and things like that. You might be looking for those. You might be looking for food sensitivities. That's a big one. You might be looking for food sensitivities. And those all contribute to neuroinflammation. And Hashimoto's has a little bit, is not much of a player in those, but it's a player in pretty much everything else. So if it can be a player in those, like if you have Hashimoto's and you have the hypothyroid symptoms, it slows everything down. So now let's go back to it slowing everything down. Let's say it slows your liver down, and you're not properly processing your fats. You're not going to get essential fatty acids to your brain. They're not going to dampen the neuroinflammation to your brain, and you're going to have neuroinflammation because you're not dampening it. Also, if that liver blocks down, even though the chemicals are a separate thing, let's say you have little chemical sensitivities and they're not getting blocked in the brain, in your gut. If you have a bad blood-brain barrier, and it's likely that you do, frankly, if you have a neuroinflammation. So that's a barrier that's supposed to keep all the junk from down here from getting into your brain. Well, if you have Hashimoto's, liver slows down. It can't biotransform. It can't clear those properly. Boom, guess where they end up? They end up in a lot of different places, but they end up in nerve tissue a lot. They have an affinity for nerve tissue. I just mentioned that if the gallbladder and the liver slows down, if the gallbladder slows down, so now the next thing is thyroid slows down gallbladder. Hashimoto slows down gallbladder. If it slows that down, then the next thing you know, you have poor essential fatty acids, absorption, breakdown and absorption doesn't get there. Another thing is if it slows down your stomach's ability to make hydrochloric acid, the next thing you know, you're not sterilizing your food, you're not digesting it right. Next thing you know, you have gas, bloating. Any number of things can be happening to the inside of your intestines. Once that starts to get a little inflamed, you have leaky gut. Without getting into the whole chemistry of it, leaky gut can cause leaky blood-brain barrier. The things that are in your intestines that are bad for you, that should be going into the toilet. Toxins that should be going into the toilet start going into your bloodstream. Next thing you know, they're going up to your brain. So I could go on for a little bit because essentially the hypothyroid aspect of Hashimoto's slows everything down. The hyperthyroid aspect of Hashimoto's flares everything into inflammation. Most of that finds its way to your brain. And if you have neuroinflammation, if you have post-concussion syndrome, or something like that, I mean, even if you have like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, any of these types of conditions where you have migraines, you have chronic migraines, you have real sensitivity to sound, heavy duty sensitivity to light, all these are inflammatory responses to different parts of the brain. That's how you work it down. That's how you evaluate it. You have to put that neuroinflammation in a framework against all of those different potential triggers and contributors, and then you have to just kind of figure out which ones it is for that patient, and then attack, and so that's neuroinflammation and Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of What is Hashimoto's? To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com.